of money in these accounts. It's a lot of money to not be looking at or not be checking on or not be thinking about or not be factoring into how secure you are when you stop working.
I'm feeling real Sesame Street-ish right here, where it's like, wow, thank you. I appreciate that context.
Welcome to the Rich and Regular podcast, where we explore life at the intersection of money. I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Julian. And today we're talking about how to know if your employer retirement plan sucks. Like, how do you know?
How do you know?
You know when you know, but how do you know? How do you get to that point? But first, I want to give a shout out to Black Enterprise, specifically Asan Washington. He wrote an article entitled, "These Black Financial Influencers Will Help You Get Your Money and Your Mind Right." And they included us in the listing.
Oh, that's your money and your mind right.
Your money and your mind right. All of it. Really appreciate that, Asan. Thank you to everyone at Black Enterprise. Obviously one of our favorite publications and has been for a really, really long time in terms of what it provides, but also what it represents. Here's what they had to say. Julian and Kirsten Saunders, a husband and wife team, have been implementing financial literacy since 2017. Through their platform, Rich and Regular, they create engaging content, including blog posts and YouTube videos that offers insight into financial independence, marriage, and wealth building. Their chemistry, humor, and honesty make their approach to financial education easy to digest for couples and families.
Yes. Come on, digestive.
I love it. I love it. You know, it's not every day my humor is applauded in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry.
A little dry.
You know, it's called...
a little dark.
You know, it's quality.
Like an attic.
It's quality. I ain't for everybody, you know? But no, we appreciate that. And so again, just shout out to everybody that's just been supporting the channel. We normally save this ask to sign up or subscribe. But like, I'm calling it out right now. Like, we really, really still need it. And I'm saying this, you know, because I have found that people think, oh, they good. They've been all right.
We're not good, y'all.
We're not good.
I'm just playing.
I want you to
we
believe,
good
act
in general.
as if like we're struggling. Like, we need it. Like, it really, really matters. There's a reason why I think we tend to take a casual, more laid back approach, because I don't want to be beating people over the head all the time. But like, we need all of the above. Like, we need subscriptions. You know, I'm about to start showing the numbers, but I'm willing to bet like 90% of the people that listen to the show have never rated it, and 90% of the people who, you know, watch the videos don't subscribe because they don't have to. But like, you know, I'm going to start making y'all do it.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
So put something behind like a subscriber wall.
You see, I'm trying.
I don't want you to pay for it, but I do want you to like subscribe or whatever that means.
I'm about to. It matters, dude. It matters. We really, really need it. So, all right. How do you know if your employer retirement plan sucks, Kirsten?
Yes. There's two big reasons that I want to talk about this. First, most people, maybe not y'all who are listening, but most people only invest through their employer sponsored retirement plan, which is usually a 401k. There are other types, but 401k is the dominant one. And the second reason is, despite the fact that most people invest, a lot of people aren't happy with the accounts that they have, which is why they undervalue investing in a 401k. They don't increase their contributions every year. They don't check on their balances. They don't even count that money when they're worrying about retirement or trying to figure out when they can retire.
Yeah.
Before we start our conversation, I want to ground us in some stats, because I think it's important to know how applicable this conversation is before you tune out or think that there's not something in here that you can't pass on to a friend or a parent or a loved one. So first of all, over 71 million people have a 401k. And of those that are eligible, over 80% choose to contribute. So if you have one, the majority of people are choosing to put a little something in it. And I don't know that you can use those types of percentages for anything else. Like, when you talk about voting, the number of eligible voters who actually vote is far slimmer than 80%.
Yeah.
According to Fidelity, there are almost 827,000 accounts holding over $1 million as of June 2025. Keep in mind, this is accounts and not people.
And this is just Fidelity too.
And this is just Fidelity.
Like, they are, I don't know what their market share is. It's significant, but like, it's not like Google.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where there's basically 90% of the share. Like, my guess, I'm just throwing it out there, is like they may represent maybe 18%, maybe 20%. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I bring that up because it's important to consider the standard distribution of like account size. Because again, people dismiss their 401ks because they don't have $1 million or $400,000 in it. And it's like most people don't. Out of the 71 million accounts, less than a million have over $1 million in it. And the third thing that I want to mention is that it's estimated that $9 trillion is sitting in 401k accounts. Now, $9 trillion is a lot of money. That's more than the GDP
How
of
much
Germany.
money is it?
That's more than the GDP of Germany and Japan combined.
I don't know what that means.
Well, Germany and Japan are the third and fourth largest economies in the world, Craig. Not the city, but the world, Craig. And it is double that of India's GDP. And India is like the fifth largest economy in the world. So it's a lot of money in these accounts. It's a lot of money to not be looking at or not be checking on or not be thinking about or not be factoring into how secure you are when you stop working.
I'm feeling real Sesame Streetish right here, where it's like, wow, thank you. I appreciate that context. Wow.
But the reason we're talking about this is because, according to a 2024 Nuveen report, 3 out of 10 employees at mid and large size companies would strongly agree that they're satisfied with their plan.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of money, it's a lot of people, but only 3 out of 10 people are actually satisfied, 30%.
Well, we always gonna find something to complain about. So I'm sure if we looked at that survey, you could actually drill down. I get it though, because I'm looking at it more so in terms of like my own personal qualitative research and conversations that I've had with people, and that still feels about right. Like every now and then you run across somebody that is particularly upset about their 401k, and the reason why I think that number is, just depending on the day, right? Like, are they happy with it? Are they not? But you always notice you're talking to a small subsection of people anyway. So it's kind of weird to kind of really look at it and think that most people are or most people aren't. I think it's a very individualized thing.
I think what they're judging their satisfaction on is the result.
Correct.
Which is what we're talking about. Like you could have a plan and it sucks.
Correct.
And you don't know it. It's like when you're dating somebody and they suck, but you don't realize it until you hang around another couple and it's like, well, wait a minute. I didn't know that type
I didn't realize that was, a possibility.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know.
Or you break up and you go date somebody new and you're like, oh, this is love? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's why we're talking about this.
Yeah, I'll add one other thing here. We're using the term retirement accounts and 401k plans sort of interchangeably.
Right.
It's not just 401ks. Like those stats were specific to 401k accounts. It does not include 403b accounts, which is basically the equivalent for people who work for government or for nonprofit organizations and those kinds of things. And so it's significantly larger, right? There are a lot of people, but generally speaking, they know, like all them other people, they know that we're talking about them too. We're just trying to not keep on saying 401k, 403b, because then we'll be tripping over our tongues for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll say why I wanted to talk about this is because I know that this tends to be one of the catalysts to why people really start to get their lives together. I know if you ever go into a message board or some kind of online community, this tends to be one of the more popular posts that you'll see, where someone finally builds up the courage to ask that question. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but here's a picture of what is offered, and then a bunch of people chime in like, Lord, run. Like, that is not it. You don't want to be doing it. That's horrible. You need to be checking this out. You need to be following these things. Don't do this. Don't do that. And so, yeah, this is one of those reasons why I want us to talk about it, because going back to those survey results, you don't know where you fall in that category. Are you one of these satisfied people, or are you one of the 7 out of 10 who aren't satisfied? You won't know likely until the end of this episode if you continue to keep on listening. But like, if you know, you know. And if you aren't that person, now is a great opportunity to find out what side of that coin you fall on. So how do you know? We're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. So there are 3 primary reasons why someone would likely not be satisfied with their 401k. The first reason is going to be they don't like the mutual fund options that are available to them. The second one is going to be the employer match, right? This goes back to when you have that conversation with another friend and you find out that their employer is offering something far more lucrative. And obviously that has an impact on the result that you're going to see. And the third one, which you don't hear as much about these days, or at least I don't, is going to be what's referred to as the vesting period. And again, this moment, right, is I like to think of it as like the awakening. Like, depending on where you are in your personal finance journey, one of the early chapters in your journey, one of the first things you're going to do, because the vast majority of people, their primary retirement account is going to be their employee retirement account. Like that's the primary one for the vast majority of people. And so logging into that dashboard after they've listened to a podcast episode like this, or having read a blog, or finally reading an article and saying, you know what, this is the year that I'm going to really, really dive into my finances. This opportunity is like one of the earliest ones where they really start to put in practice a lot of this newfound knowledge. And this is when they found out, oh my gosh, like I've been doing this wrong, or the plan that I have that I'm basically basing my retirement on is one that is not aligned with, let's say, my objectives, or maybe I'm not investing enough, or maybe there's no way I'll be able to get there. Obviously, if you were someone who came through the front door of the financial independence or the FIRE movement, maybe you saw a, feature online, or you saw the movie, or whatever it was, the book, doesn't matter. Like, you are kind of shaped to think a certain way. You kind of know what to look for. You log into your account and you say, oh man, like, I'm one of those people that they were talking about that realized that something needed to change. And it's not just because of your contributions. In a lot of cases, it has a lot to do with the funds that are available, whether or not your employer has a match, or what that looks like in that vesting period. We were fortunate in that when we had our awakening and we were ready to kind of apply what we had learned, we didn't really have this problem from our employer. I remember realizing, like, oh, wow. And in fact, it became another opportunity for us to realize the difference between, let's say, your standard ETFs and mutual funds, and what they call institutional funds, which are basically different versions of the exact same thing. And so for us, it kind of really worked out, because we were like, wow, all right, good. Because we believed we had worked for a good employer. Everything wasn't perfect, but this
Mm-hmm.
was quite honestly one of those things that we had overlooked, because,
Mm-hmm.
you just assumed, do they have a 401k? Yes, but you don't really, a lot of people don't really think about the 2 to 3 other questions that you really need to be asking. And I'm willing to bet almost nobody ever asked to see the details
Of
of
the
the
funds.
401k
Yeah.
before they accept the job offer, which I think is really, really risky. Like, this is where, Glassdoor and a couple of these other online platforms come in really helpful, because it gives you a look behind the curtain a little bit before you just make a decision based on whatever agreement you have in terms of salary or scheduling with your manager. And so, yeah, we were fortunate, but I know a lot of people aren't. So, like I said, I think this episode is going to end up helping out a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't remember looking at my 401k until I found the FIRE movement. I don't think I was actually participating. I wasn't participating. I had gone 5 years at that company without participating, not even at match level, because I just didn't think it was important. I was one of those people that
Oh, I don't
thought I
remember that.
had a lot of, it's in the book. Go back and read the
I don't
chapter.
remember that part. I
It's
can't,
in the
and I
book.
stayed.
Yeah, it's in the
Wow.
book.
Wow.
And then when I did enroll, or maybe I was enrolled, but I wasn't
I
enrolled up to
think
the
I
match.
think you
I
were
don't
in
remember what
I
happened.
think you were enrolled, like a lot of people, just up to the match,
I don't think I
right?
was enrolled up to the match, but I don't remember. Get somebody who read the book, go tell us what I was doing.
Oh Lord.
But I do remember that when I first enrolled, I just followed the prompts. And our provider at the time was Wells Fargo or another big bank. And they had created this intranet site where it would guide you through different retirement questions, and then it would recommend a fund for you. And I didn't know at the time that those were really expensive funds. They just said, like, what kind of lifestyle do you want when you retire? And I was like, I
Oh
want,
yeah.
$10 million in a yacht. And they were
Yeah, that
like,
sounds
oh, well,
good.
then you need to be invested in this very expensive fund. When I found the FIRE movement and learned about low cost index funds, when I went into the system to actually change it, it was a little bit intimidating, but at the same time, I realized how much money I would be saving. And so, if you are someone who the FIRE movement or maybe a podcast episode was your catalyst, it sucks when you learn that low cost index funds might be the best path for you, but your company doesn't offer them.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and there's a dish that's been hyped up, but it's not on the menu anymore. Or like when you go on vacation and you're looking forward to the pool, but it's closed down because somebody pooped in it or for maintenance or whatever it is. Like, it's really disappointing and deflating. There are options that you have, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, all 401k funds are not the same. Whoever that provider is that your company uses may or may not have your best intentions in mind. and don't think that that's the end of the story.
Yeah, and it's also in a lot of cases not personal or like one that is based on some kind of backhanded deal or anything like that. It's really just because a lot of people just don't know. They've not subscribed to that same podcast or book. They don't understand why it's such a big deal for them. They were just checking the box as well. We just wanted to make sure that we offer this because we knew that we had to, but they don't start thinking about or trying to ensure that the options that they are making available to their employees are representative of this newfound awakening or understanding of the role that cost plays in people's long-term balances. Like most people still till this day don't think about it that way. Now, I mentioned we obviously worked for the same employer. You're right. We were fortunate in that we did have options available to us that were in line with our values. But I will say we did have to make those decisions for accounts that were outside of our employer retirement accounts. And so in this case, and I believe this was also in our book, but my version of that was realizing that I needed to move away from thinking that because I have a financial advisor and because that person has access to all kinds of information that they somehow can make projections and accurate predictions about what's going to happen, and that's what's going to help me get my $10 million in the yacht. I really had to confront that issue. And so when I went to him at the time and said, hey, I've learned this and I agree with this and this is what I want, that's when I had the conflict that I had to overcome. And that's what ultimately led me until this day to self-manage our funds. Like, we do not have a financial advisor. We do not knock financial advisors, but we, based on our understanding of research, having done this for years, and based on the results that we've seen just in the last 10 years, we don't necessarily find it to be necessary. And I know that language, that thought is something that scares a lot of people. Like I said, when you do the work, when you do your research, when you grow and start to get a little bit more comfortable, maybe you reach that point too. Or maybe you find some hybrid version where you can get the expert advice that you need when you need it,
Yeah.
but you aren't subscribed to some model that basically erodes the growth of your portfolio over time. So
yeah. So if you're one of those people who discovered low cost index funds and don't see them when you log into your 401k account, first thing to know is sometimes you do have good options, but they're buried in a list or labeled in a way that makes them hard to find. This is where understanding expense ratios and asset allocations really matter, because the first thing you should do is search for a comparable fund, assuming there's one available.
yeah.
So there's not much difference between Vanguard's total index fund, Fidelity's, and Schwab's. There are minor differences, but it's not enough to like take your ball and go home.
Let me use a metaphor here for food, right? So let's say you saw this recipe online and it required you to use, some mainstream brand of tomato sauce. Like, I sound bougie because I don't buy tomato sauce anymore. I make my own. But what is it? Prego? No, what is it?
Rouse.
Rouse. Let's say Rouse and is like the creme de la creme of tomato sauces, and that's what this recipe calls for, and that chef or online personality swears by it. You go to your store and you realize that they don't have it or they're out of
Wow,
Rouse.
they got Bertolli.
And all they got is Bertolli or, Prego or something like that. And, your job, just like the same thing you would do with a 401k, is you got to turn that thing around. You got to look at the ingredients, and it requires a certain lens, a certain understanding of what you're looking for. Things like the core ingredients of it, like what
is it chunky? Is it smooth?
how is it
Is
listed?
there garlic and
right?
herbs?
You basically are trained to look beyond the label, right? Or the marketing, the brand name, and to look at the ingredient list and to look at the nutritional value. And that's what's basically informing your decision. And then from there, you will say, okay, I can't buy Rouse, but I can buy the roasted garlic Bertolli chunky. And that is pretty close to it. Nobody's going to be able to tell the difference.
Exactly.
Like, that's basically the kind of decision that you'd be making here.
Exactly. You can also ask an advisor, if you have one, for a comparable recommendation. If
Right.
you haven't done things like send your 401k package to an advisor that you're paying for, you're selling yourself short on their actual advice. And then the third thing, if the funds are all really bad, then you can choose not to invest at all in that plan, or maybe just limit your investments up to the match. Whatever you decide to do, you can limit your participation and then prioritize other types of retirement accounts that don't require an employer's intervention,
Right.
like a traditional IRA. So those are your options there.
Yep. And I really love that point about utilizing your financial advisor for more than just the money that sits with them. Because if you know that the money that you are investing with your employer is ultimately going to get rolled over, they're going to get
Mhm.
this money anyway. And so if you can, even if they don't offer the kind of funds that you are looking for, low cost index funds, if you tell them this is something that I'm looking for and can you help me make a decision based on that recommendation, they can help you with that as well. Now you're going to run into that problem when that money is rolled over to them because they can't now park that money into something comparable. Hopefully they can, but in our case, they would not have been able to do it, but they can still help you make that decision. You're paying them for more than just to manage the money and to make the decisions based on the money that they're managing with you today. So that's the number one issue that most people feel. They go there, they log into their account, they don't find exactly what they're looking for, and all of a sudden they're ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't have to do that. You do have some options. The second one, the second issue that a lot of people realize and that leads them to believe that their 401k plan sucks is that the employer match is poor,
Weak sauce.
or they just don't have one, or it's just like super complicated. So I want to just talk a little bit about that because, again, I'm not gonna lie, like I was a little spoiled in this case. We were like really fortunate. I don't remember what it was, but it was like, whatever the middle of the road was, like the match at the time was like right there or like slightly above it. And I was like, all right, man, like we really lucked out. Like I admitted the fact that this was not something that was factored into whether or not I wanted to work there or not, because I would have worked there no matter what, because like that was my number one and number two option in terms of companies that I wanted to work for. But this tends to be an issue when people are like, comparing what they offer and the growth potential compared to others. So your employer match, let's just talk a little bit about what it is first. Like this is when a percentage of or a portion of the contributions that you make into your retirement account is matched by your employer. This is usually going to be dollar for dollar. So for the first however many dollars, like if I put in a dollar, they'll put in a dollar. Sometimes it is a percentage of a dollar. And so if you put in a dollar, they will put in 10% or 5%,
50%.
50%, whatever it is of that particular dollar to basically match and add to the pile of money that you're saving. Or in some cases, it is a combination of all of the above. So for the first $5, they're going to contribute dollar for dollar. And then for that $6, they're just going to give you 25 cents for that $6 and so on. And then it'll stop and cap off at that point. Now, I want to give people some perspective here because I think it helps because again you're trying to figure out what your plan looks like relative to other people's plans before you have that very vulnerable conversation with your family or your friends. And so this is based on a 2024 report by Fidelity, and they basically found that half of employers with 401k plans don't offer matching programs at all. So just off the top, right? If you are mad that your employer does not offer one, like it's not like you are some tiny percentage of people. Half of companies don't offer one at all.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, for small businesses, a lot of them don't offer a 401k plan at all.
Right.
Right. So if you're the kind of person who just is done with working for big companies, like these are the kinds of things that you
That you
really
give up.
should be keeping in mind. Like if you're frustrated about your match, to keep in mind, only 50% of companies as a whole offer them at all.
Mhm.
And then if you want to move down to a smaller company, like just keep in mind, these are the kinds of trade-offs that you're likely going to have to make. Now, conversely, let's say you're sticking with these large employees, you tend to start to see it being much more of a prevalent thing because the match itself becomes such a important tool. They know who they're trying to attract. And so they are comparing their match relative to other people or other employers rather who are trying to attract the same employee that you're trying to attract. And so that's when you start to see that competition being played out. And that's essentially what top talent is paying for. So now when you look at the match and you start comparing it there, right? You're like looking at one company versus another company, both of them offer a match. It's important to kind of know like what's good and what isn't. The average employer match is usually around 4 and 6% of an employee's salary. Obviously, you could just call it 5, but this is what the surveys have shown. And the breakdown for the types of matches, remember we talked about them being dollar for dollar, being a percentage of a dollar, or some combination of both. When you look at what those matches look like, 70% of them, the vast majority, are going to be that partial match that we talked about. 23% are going to be that tiered match where it's dollar for dollar up until a certain point and then it becomes a percentage. And then 21% is dollar for dollar. And I know that does not add up to 100%. But the reason for that is because it's really difficult to actually quantify this. And so we're looking at data and survey results from a variety of different sources. But I think the most important thing is that creme de la creme that we were talking about, which was that dollar for dollar match. And that number was around 21%. Let's just call it 1 out of 5. So if you are the kind of employee that works for a company, most likely it's a large company, and there's a dollar for dollar match, just keep in mind that you are in that upper 20%, right? Like that is such a highly sought after benefit. That's exactly what a lot of people are looking for. 4 out of 5 companies do not offer that. All
Hmm.
right. So, like, put your, for lack of a better word, gripe or complaints in perspective before you just decide to jump ship, because there's so many other questions that really, really need to be addressed there. And to go back to your earlier point, a not so great match is a far better predicament to be in than working for a company that has a 401k and you don't like the options that they have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that is a second tier problem
Right.
relative to not having a 401k plan at all, or having a 401k and not having good fund options. So, like, not having a match, like, just put that in perspective. Because again, I know a lot of people, depending on the entry point to this conversation, are like really frustrated. They're looking at their friends and other things that they're talking about, government employees or something. They got all the perks. Just slow down. You know what I mean? Like, there are other ways to accomplish your goals before you just decide to jump ship. Like, that's not a reason to leave, in my opinion. It's just a reason to think a little differently about how you want to
Yes.
get where you want to go, especially if your goal is to like retire early.
And how aggressively you need to be investing in non-tax advantaged funds,
Correct.
right? Because a match can make a huge difference on how fast your retirement grows. So I want to talk to people who have a match, the 50% of y'all that may have a match available to you now, because not all matches are created equal. And so if you do decide to leave your company with a match, you need to understand what whoever you're going to or whatever you're applying for, what they offer and how that may impact your financial goals. So you mentioned dollar for dollar matches. Those are pretty straightforward. They're going to match whatever you put in, and the difference depends entirely on whatever the cap is. Sometimes it's 3%, sometimes it's 6% of your salary. In the company that we used to work for, the cap would actually change the higher you went up in the company.
Yep.
So when I started, there was a 4% cap. When I left, I was earning dollar for dollar on 6%. And so even that just 2 point difference made a huge difference in how much I had to contribute before I maxed out my 401k. I want to do some numbers real quick just to make it real. So let's assume that someone who makes $60,000 decides to contribute 10% or $6,000 to their plan. And before the eyes roll and gasp and say, who's contributing 10%? There's a lot of people that are contributing 10%, just like there are a lot of people who are tithing 10%. It's a very real
Uh-oh.
number. If
Uh-oh.
that person has a dollar for dollar match, meaning 100% match up to 6%, like I had when I left. 6% of $60,000 is $3,600, and 100% of that for the match is another $3,600. Not for free. You had to do something, but
Right.
it matches. Now, if somebody only had a partial match, same salary, same job, partial match, 50% on that same 6% of their salary, they're only getting $1,800 of a match.
I mean, only
Yeah,
relative to 36. It's
relative to
better than
36,
zero.
better than
I hate to
zero.
sound like your financial advisor, but like,
Yes.
the whole idea of leaving money on the table, this is exactly what they're referring to.
Absolutely. Now, where it gets tricky is that you can have a partial match and a lower cap. So there are some companies that only offer 50% match up to, say, 3% of your salary. And again, this can be in the same company. When I was a junior employee, that's the kind of deal I had. It was dollar for dollar, but only up to 4%. So it's really important to understand the cap, because a 50% match up to 3% is only $900, right? And again, I'm saying only $900 that you didn't have to work for is good money, but relative to the other options, it feels smaller. And this is why you have to think of your retirement plan as a part of your total contribution, and why I don't really like calling employer matches free money. Like, it's not a gift.
It's not.
It's not a gift.
It's a compartmentalization of
Yes.
your salary as a whole. And if you decide to not take advantage of it, you're basically giving away, you're working for free to an extent. There's a portion
Yes.
of the labor that you are
Leaving
giving
on the
away,
table.
and you are basically deferring or opting out of being paid for.
Yes, you're giving it back to them.
Mhm.
It's It's not a gift. It's part of the package that your employer uses to attract and retain you. Just like your paid time off, just like your bonus or your health benefits that they subsidize. When you think of a match as free money, a small match just feels like something nice to have, like something that they're giving you, like, hey, man, at least it's $900. But when you see it as part of your pay, you realize that a low match means that you are leaving some money on the table if it's offered in comparable companies for comparable work.
Mhm.
So if we both make $60,000 on paper, but my employer match is worth $3,600 and yours is worth $900, I'm effectively making $2,700 more every year before we even talk about investment growth.
Mhm.
And that is such an important lesson because over 20 years, over 30 years, it adds up to be hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. So seeing the employer match as a part of your total compensation helps you weigh not just the short-term paycheck, but also your long-term wealth building capabilities and how long your timeline is and how big your shovel is
Mhm.
and how much you have to carve out from other areas of your budget to achieve your goals versus how much is just built into the job that you go to every day.
Yeah, I think this is really important because, again, going back to these message boards and when people do finally overcome the discomfort of talking openly about their income, people naturally just start to compare themselves. And so you might be a marketing employee or something like that. Maybe you work in PR and you are, or the restaurant industry, I'm just making it up. But the conversations that you're having are with people who work in tech. You can't compare the benefits that are being offered to you to the benefits that are being offered to people who work in the government or people who work for large Fortune 500 companies. Like, it's just different. And oftentimes people aren't looking at that. They're just looking at it plan for plan. And you really have to look at that bigger picture. Every gripe, every issue isn't the same. Like, is it
Mhm.
perfect? Is it exactly what you're looking for? No. But not having a match or not having the match that someone else offers or some industry offers is not the same thing as having poor fund options. Like, if there's nothing that you can find that you think is worthy of parking money into, that's a significantly larger and more troublesome issue than a match or the difference between a 4% and a 5% match, right? Like,
Yep.
it's not a reason really to jump. And if it is, then you are in a completely different like point in your life, and that money really, really matters. And so you were probably going to have to leave
Yeah.
anyway. So,
Yes. The action that you need to take from this segment is that plan formulas will always list both the percentage that they match and the max percentage of salary that they'll match. So they will list the percentage and the cap. You need to get whatever your match formula is in writing. And then you need to run that dollar math and include it in your total pay when you're comparing jobs or negotiating.
yeah.
It's so important that you get it in writing. Because if you just ask somebody, like if you ask your work bestie or your HR rep, they might just tell you, oh, it's 6% or
Mhm.
oh, we match 3%. That other part, the cap, makes a big difference. You got to know both. You got to know the percentage that they match and the percent of your salary that
Yeah,
they
we
match.
could talk about this forever because here's the thing, and I'm sure I knew the word administrator was going to come up. Do not expect your administrator to be an expert in this at all, right? They are the person that's going to be listed on that website. And so if you have questions, they are, yes, the person that is legally identified as the single internal point of conflict, but do not expect that person to reach out to you. And I'm sorry to tell you right now, if there is another person that is listed, like the actual plan representative on the other side, don't expect them to reach out either, right?
Mhm.
Like, this is not what that relationship looks like at all. That person signed that deal at some point on the front end. They ported over the single sign access to get them to plug into y'all's intranet, and that's it. Like, from
Mhm.
there, you're basically stuck with it until the administrator or the big boss of your company decides that they want to change it for some real reason. But like, it's not something that changes very quickly. And in our experience, and I'm pretty sure most people's experience, it's not the kind of thing that you can expect there to be like a lot of hand holding or internal support. Like, welcome to America. Welcome to 2025. You are on your own. Managing your funds are on your own. We talk a lot about this in our class, Making Money Grow. We're obviously going to link to that. We always do. But just as a reminder, we have a class teaches you everything you need to know about how to invest. And so regardless of where you are on your financial journey, if a lot of this stuff sounds like financial mumbo jumbo and you're uncomfortable and you don't really know what it means, we can help you get there in about 5 hours. This podcast, though, is only going to be around 40 some odd minutes. So let's move on to the next point. The third problem that people usually identify that makes them determine that their 401k plan sucks is the vesting period.
Oh,
And
Lord.
this is something that I'm not even going to lie. Like I've not thought about a vesting period in a long time, but it's a very real issue. You don't hear much about it. I kind of feel like
Yes,
things
you
have,
do.
well,
You just ain't been employed.
I don't,
Because
but
there's vesting periods for everything, for
I
healthcare,
know.
for you got to work for a little bit
I
before we
feel
give
like it
you.
has been relaxed a little bit. Y'all let me know. Like, is it, I feel like at least when I was in corporate, it felt like it was a bit more relaxed. But again, that's just my perspective. So what is a vesting period? A vesting period is a period of time that you have to wait before the matches that we just started talking about were officially yours. And so in that dashboard, in that world of make believe, where they are showing you the possibilities and how magical your life is going to look like and trying to entice you to make certain selections and to invest as much as you can with those funds or with that brokerage firm. There's likely going to be that little number in there, and they're talking about, how much the company is matching. What they don't show you usually is where you stand. It's not like there's a timeline there that says, oh, you're getting close. They're just showing you that the money is there.
Mhm.
Right. And the assumption is that it's all yours, but that's not necessarily true. Right. Like it's yours if you are 100% vested.
The
Right.
money you contribute
The
is
money that you
always
contribute
yours.
is always going to be yours. Right. But
The match,
inflated number that is boosted a little bit with that 3, 4, 6% dollar for dollar, and that percentage may not necessarily be yours depending on whether or not you are 100% vested or not. And the reason why employers do that is as a retention tool. Like,
mhm,
again, going back to offering a match at all, there's another hurdle now that you need to overcome before this money is officially yours. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's years. If you're a senior level employee, maybe you can bypass and negotiate that altogether, or maybe they just take that off the table, right?
mhm.
If you're a senior employee, like a VP or something like that. But it just kind of depends. And there are two typical approaches here. And it's important to know that this is not something that is based just on what employers do. This is something that is done in conjunction with the IRS. So there are some regulations and some guidelines that all of these plans must follow. But there are two types of vesting schedules. There's going to be your cliff vesting, and this is an vesting schedule that's basically all or nothing. And so you're an employee, you are contributing to your 401k, you are receiving that match, whatever that match is, but the actual match is not yours for a set period of time until you are with the company for, let's say, a year, 2 years, or something like that. The IRS restricts that period. So the maximum is going to be 3 years, which, my God, like just thinking about that would drive me absolutely crazy. But this is real, right? I've heard of a year, I've heard of 6 months, I've never heard of 3 years, but it's good to know that there is an actual limit there. And I'm willing to bet there are some people out there who can say, no, that was me. But yeah, that's a heck of a retention tool, like to keep somebody on the edge of a cliff for 3 years, hence the name. That if you leave at any point between now and that 3 year period of your official start date, you are foregoing any of the contributions that they've made in addition to what you have
Yeah,
contributed,
you're either 0% vested or
or
you're
you're 100%.
100%
Like
vested.
that's
There's
it,
no in between.
in or
If you
out.
leave the day before your 3 years, if you miscalculated how they're counting years, whether it's
Ah,
365 days or a calendar.
that part. So let me tell you something that a lot of people need to think about, because I know for me, this was the case. Your start date, I remember my start date, the first day I worked there, I was a contractor. Like they really, really wanted me. They had to finagle some budget to get me in the door. My actual start date was somewhere in August, but I was a contractor at the time, which means I couldn't actually contribute to the 401k
Mhm,
at the time. It wasn't until I rolled over to being an actual full-time employee, which was around 6 months later, that
mhm.
I became an actual employee of
And
the
then you had to
company.
wait.
And then it all started. So there was, in addition
Did they
to,
not make you wait 90 days?
I don't remember, but I do think I had to wait a little
Yeah,
bit,
you
right?
still got to vest
But
on
the
schedule.
reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think if there's anyone else that's out there that just remembers that, no, they started in August or they started in December, it doesn't matter. If you started as a temporary employee or as a
Mhm.
contractor, you could have done that for years. That is not your start date. And so if your 401k plan, your retirement plan is somehow, don't make that mistake. Don't assume that it
Yeah.
starts on the day
Ask for the
that you
fine
actually
print.
started working. Make
Yeah.
sure you know when that official anniversary start date is, and that you are making moves with your money based on that date, not the date that you actually first step foot in that office. So that's cliff vesting. The other version of this that you'll see is what's called graded vesting. And this is a more gradual schedule. So let's say we're talking about 3 years. This is a case where they'll say, well, you are 20% vested after the first year. I'm just making it up. 60% vested after the second, and then 100% after the third year is done. And then you become 100%. So
Yeah.
like
So you leave
you
with
can keep
something.
20% after the first sort of tier or grade. And
Yeah.
then the second, you can keep this much more of it. And then you're not 100% invested until the full vesting period is done. The most common graded schedule is a 6-year plan. And it's basically at 20-year increments, right? 20% vested after 2 years,
Hmm.
40% after 3, and so on until they're 100% vested after that 6 year. Again, we were very fortunate. I want to say it was like a 90-day
Yes.
cliff vesting period. And then after that, you were 100% vested. But these options and these things, these
Listen.
considerations exist. Fun fact, there was a 2022 study of over 900 401k plans, and it found that 1.8 million participants forfeited $1.5 billion. So
Mhm.
900 plans back in 2022, 1.8 million people forfeited $1.5 billion
Mhm.
based on this little issue right here. They left, they found that other job. This is the money that they basically gave up. This is real money. I feel some kind of way about this particular tactic. But
I hate vesting schedules. I think they should be restricted to executives, but no one below the manager level should be subject to vesting. One, I think it's just a weak retention tool. I
right,
think in a competitive job market and in the labor market that we in, people not staying at jobs for decades anymore. In fact, like if you have a long vesting period, it's not a reason to stay. It's actually a reason to go look for something else. Go
right.
look for, especially when there are companies like Visa, who is well known for their match and vesting, which is a 200% match, up to 8% of your salary vested immediately.
Right.
Like there's a
Don't compare your 401k plan. This is what I mean.
yeah.
Don't, if your
But
friend
Visa got
works,
tons of money for other reasons. Like go back and listen to our podcast on debt, and you'll realize why Visa is able to offer such a generous match and vesting period to attract all of the talent that they want. But the other reason I'm not a fan of vesting is because the unvested money just goes back to the company. So all that money that you're talking about was forfeited. If you leave before the match is fully vested, the unclaimed match stays in the plan, and the company can use it to reduce what they owe in future contributions to the remaining employees, or even to cover the cost of the plan to their provider.
yeah,
which is insane. Like that's money you thought was yours, but it goes back to save the company cash instead. You're basically giving them a refund. You held it for a second in this tax covered, you know, it's not even like an account, like it's a bubble on paper. It allowed them to get all these benefits, and then they cash it out and they can still use those benefits. So don't think for a second, to Julian's point, that this logic doesn't factor into who gets cut and who gets kept
that's
when
exactly where I
layoffs
was
come
going to go
around.
with this. Like, of course, they're looking at this
Yes,
information.
if
Like,
they can
how much is
trim
it going to cost
payroll,
us to keep these people?
listen,
How much might we be able to save if we let these people go? Like, if it boils down to skill for skill, social capital for social capital, I guarantee you,
man,
the
look,
CFO is up in that meeting for a reason and saying, "Look, I understand what you guys are saying, and this person is great, or these people are great, or this person's team is great." But there's also an opportunity here, right?
yes.
Just looking at this objectively, like personalities and relationships aside. And these are the kinds of things that I think are what highlight the power imbalance and what we caution
Hmm.
people against in terms of playing this rigged game. Like these kinds of details, these kinds of conversations that are happening in boardrooms that you are not privy to, and what a lot of people who get into management and upper level management all of a sudden become privy to, which is why they become grossed out and ultimately want to cash out of
Or
their
why they become
careers.
evil and
It's
greedy.
it's
Because it's
because it's
like,
you
if,
got to live with that. And that's a gross
yes,
feeling because you let somebody go for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do
it's
with their
also
performance or their contribution to the
in
company.
not to defend, gross executives, but it's also a completely natural decision. If you have the opportunity to let go of 500 people because they make sense, or to only let go of 150 because you get the payroll trim and you get the big match payout because they're not vested, or because, they have this vesting schedule that is very lucrative and we could use that money to offset over here. Like, ultimately, layoffs are just a math problem to find profit centers so that shareholders can be happy.
That's it.
And so
that last part,
I don't love it.
I'm a shareholder. And so I completely
but
understand.
But the way that you deal with it is to become a shareholder.
Correct.
Yeah.
As a shareholder, I completely condone and support your efforts to save money and lower costs, right? I understand that needs to be managed. I totally get it. What we're cautioning people and what we've been cautioning people to for the last 7 years, again, shout out to Black Enterprise for doing their research on the start date. But you cannot believe that your hard work and effort and relationships are going to be somehow rewarded over the long term. It just does not work that way. The system is not designed to work that way. And so that's what we are encouraging people against. And so that's the larger conversation that connects not just your 401k plan, but the impact or the role that your career ambitions play in tandem with it. And so those are the big three reasons. Obviously, we can keep going on about some of these issues or challenges that people face. But, in the case of a vesting schedule, again, there's nothing you can do about it. Notice
hold on. There is something you can do. Now, you may not have much success, but
send a
you can absolutely submit your feedback tastefully to HR. Now, if you're an exec or you are someone in a higher level position, this episode should incentivize you to make sure that you are not just focused on salary, PTO, and remote work options when you are negotiating your new job. This stuff matters. The vesting schedule, the match, all of that can be negotiated. If you are just a standard employee, again, you're limited to submitting feedback, but make sure that you do your homework. Make sure that you are specific on the issue, whether it is the match or the fees or limited funds, whatever it is. Make sure that you propose alternatives or at least offer companies that are similar as a national benchmark. Don't be going in talking about, well, Visa does this, if your company is not a multinational, global, trillion dollar. If it ain't in the Fortune 100, don't bring Visa to them. And then the second thing is to frame it as a retention and morale issue. But you really have to think about this the same way you would if you were negotiating your lease with a landlord or with your apartment. You don't just go up in there and be like, the rent too damn high. You actually have to bring comps. You actually have to bring a rational decision. And you still got to be open to the fact that they're like, yeah, I don't want to. Like, somebody can afford it. And so that's, you're not powerless here, but it is something to keep in mind, like top of mind, because there's no loan for retirement. Your retirement is 100% up to you. The 401k was created as an incentive to get more Americans to care. That's why it has the tax benefits. That's why employers offer these things, because it's a big handshake between employers, the government, and citizens to say, look, we'll all help you do the right thing, but you're not obligated to do it. And so when you are thinking about retirement and when you're thinking about jobs, you got to keep the retirement plan in mind the same way you do like the school system when you're looking for houses or the HOA fees. It's right up there. It's not just about titles. It's not just about salary. And it's not just about whether you have to go into the office or not.
Amen. Amen.
Oh, that's it. I get to drop the mic.
What about the parking spot?
So traffic plans. Can I make a left out? Because that's what's going. That's what's going. Like, can you get out to lunch before your hour is up?
Yeah. See, no, I can't do it. I need that.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Rich and Regular podcast. If you like what you heard, head on over to your favorite podcast player or platform and leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you see one, then match that with another 5-star rating and review, and we will match that with more 5-star episodes.
Top tier pun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The Adderall is Adderalling today.
We needed it. Struggle bus.
All right, y'all. If you don't want to leave a review, which you should, drop a comment below. Keep the conversation going. We will see y'all next week. If you like videos like this and want to see more, make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications.